Hey everyone, this is your summary for Lesson 1. So, Lesson 1 is about the centered self in crisis response parts. So I kind of split the lecture in half, and in the beginning talk about the centered self, and I talk about an acronym called BFF. BFF. Breathe, feel your body, find your feet or your seat. Go ahead and do it with me for a moment. Breathe, take a breath, just breathe. Now feel your body. Now find your feet. And then come back to center. A lot of this lesson is just about bringing you back to center over and over. And BFF is something you're going to hear a lot. So that's what BFF is. Breathe, feel your body, find your feet. And the other part of the discussion of the centered self, really I go into more depth the 8 C's. And this comes out of internal family systems when we talk about authentic self. I also talk about the fact that I'm going to be using centered self in this talk versus authentic self, because so much of what we're teaching you is about how to come back to center. You know, how to have an overwhelming situation happen and then come back to center. And these are the 8 C's of the centered self. Calm, confidence, curiosity, clear, compassionate, creative, courageous, connected. Those are the 8 C's. And basically, I define crisis in this lesson as when an event happens that floods your inner system with fear. An event happens that floods your inner system with fear. And if you're someone that's very grounded in the centered self, or you've got some of these tools, then you're going to be able to stay in your centered self during that crisis, and you're going to make the best possible decisions. Now, what happens to most of us is that we get flooded by parts, a crisis response part, right? A part of us that comes up that tries to protect us from the perceived danger. And I list off a whole bunch of crisis response parts in this lesson, and go into detail in each one. But as I read them, I want you to just feel into them and see if, oh yeah, I have this part. This is how I react in crisis. The first one is the horribilizer. And the horribilizer focuses on worst case scenarios. If you have a part that's always spinning out a worst case scenario, when something bad happens, that's a horribilizer. The isolator, which distances us from others. The caretaker, which is a codependent, when we show up and start to take care of others first, right, rather than focus on ourselves. The hero, a part that I've got this big time, a part that shows up and tries to save the day. The dictator, a very controlling, it's a controller part. Like I always imagine a mother barking orders at her children. And because my mom was like that. I think my mom had a dictator part. The stockpiler, which over-prepares for crisis. The stockpiler over-prepares for crisis. And the accountant, which analyzes and tracks everything. The lookout, who's scanning the environment for danger. The burrower, which tries to hide from the situation. The minimizer, which downplays the danger or importance. The cloud gazer, which reframes the situation as positive. The denier, that denies that anything is wrong. The paranoiac invents stories of conspiracy. The exterminator tries to eradicate the problem. The indulger distracts or numbs by self-comforting. And some other type, you might have other types of parts that I didn't list, like some people came up with the alarmist, the deer in the headlights part, the victim. You might have other parts that come up in terms of crisis. And it's interesting because these parts usually there's more than one of them, and they will kind of cascade off each other. Like if you have a horribilizer, it'll make the situation seem worse than it is, and so generate a lot of fear. So that might trigger your isolator, or it might trigger your burrower, right? Susan and I did on the webinar, she talked about her horribilizer and how it triggers her burrower. I tend to minimize and cloud gaze and deny. Just like there's nothing wrong here until it's undeniable. And of course, this was being shot during the COVID-19 pandemic. So there's lots of feeling of panic and crisis in the air right now. And what else can I say about this lesson? I have a big emphasis on coming back to center, using BFFs to come back to center. And a lot of what we're going to be teaching you in this course is how to notice that you're in a state of overwhelm or a crisis response part has been triggered, and how to work with that part, unblend from that part, and come back to center. And so that's really the focus of this lesson, was all about coming back to center with that one technique, and I touch on it many times. And then I talked in detail about the crisis response parts, and went into detail for each one of them. So if you are kind of curious now and you want to go back and look at the slides, you could go back and look for the crisis response parts that you have, if you're wanting like a time-saving way to just check in on some of the data. But really the focus of this lesson was what is centered self. And this lesson, a lot of this was gone over in the webinar. So if you were in the webinars that Susan and I did, we actually went over a lot of this information, so you will have gotten it there. So so that's my summary of content for this week. And BFF, breathe, find your body, feel your feet, come back to center. That's it.
Thanks, Everett, for that wonderful summary. On the food side, what you need to know from week 1 is that I want you to focus on 3 behaviors: writing down your food the night before, committing it to another human being, and then eating only and exactly that. That's it. The vast majority of your results in Bright Line Eating come from those basic behaviors. It's time to get back to basics. Now, there is a forum in Bright Liners Land, a forum called Daily Food Commit. You can start there, committing your food in that forum, and then find someone in that forum to partner up with, and try committing your food out loud on the phone each day at a specific time of day, usually at night or in the morning. Try that for 7 days. It's the 7-day challenge. Humor me. Give it a try. The rest of week 1 is really just, I want you to know what support sounds like on the phone. So when you're talking to each other, you're really giving support. And here's what it looks like. Never give advice. And just mirror back what they said and let them keep talking. 2 great phrases to use are, "That sounds really hard," and "Tell me more." That's it. That's week 1. I'll see you next week.